Carrie Schafer, a.k.a. Kerry Anne King. Welcome back to the Rocky Mountain Writer Podcast.
Hey, Mark, it's always good to see you. I keep thinking of me, but you keep inviting me back, and I'm always good to talk to you.
Yeah, well, we got to keep up with you. That's the main thing. We got to keep up with all of our writers, and really, there's no limit. If you've got some cool topic or some new book, and in your case, we have both cool topics and a brand new book coming out very shortly, then we have reason to get you back on the podcast. So it's great to have you back on.
Always happy to be here.
Yeah. Let's start with the brand new book. Last time it was a Kerry Schafer book. We had you on for Dead Before Dinner. And as folks know, you are prolific and you have another side to yourself, which is Kerry Anne King. And you have a brand new book. And if anybody wants to go check out the cool trailer in 30 seconds or so, you will get an awesome idea of what this book is about. But it's called Other People's Things. So dial us in.
So I do have a copy for people who are on video. So here's my here's my fun cover. I love this book. Other People's Things a little bit different than some of my Kerry Anne King books. I had so much fun with this. My main character is a 30-year-old woman with a serious life problem. She moves things, is what she says. She did her object relocation program. Other people say that she's a kleptomaniac or a thief. She has a very long rap sheet. She's been in and out of jail. She has no useful skills. She's a high school dropout. She's about to be divorced because she moved a fairly large amount of money belonging to her lawyer husband, and not real happy with her either. So, she has some serious problems. But Nicole is a really good-hearted person, and her trouble is that presenting her with objects that need to be moved. She can see this very clearly. She doesn't keep them, she moves them. And in the moving up, sometimes sort of almost magical things happen. So that's the premise of the book. And in this one, Nicole has moved an object, just an old book. What could possibly happen? She tries not to move it because she's cleaning houses for herself, which is not a good job for somebody who reels objects. And she knows this, but it's her last-ditch effort to fly straight and get things right. She finds an old paperback book that wants to be elsewhere, justifies it is in Who's Gonna Care? It's an old book. They can't arrest, everything will be fine. She moves the book and all hell breaks loose and covered, and she meets people, are brought together, and there's mystery and intrigue and secrets and emotions and a little romance. It's fun.
Well, now you're the one who mentioned hell, so I'm going to bring up the title of the book, which I got by watching that snazzy 30-some second video on your website.
Isn't that trailer awesome?
Yeah. So does the title of the book itself play a role? I assume the contents of the book are important.
The contents of the book to Other People's Things? Well, yeah, because Nicole keeps moving.
I mean the book she's moving. I mean the book she moved.
Oh, in the trailer is the book that she moves actually in the book. Yes. And it is hell. Sorry, I missed that. It's Dante's Inferno is the book that she moves.
Thank you. Yes.
Yeah, I forgot about that. It was like a little, I wasn't sure where you were going, but I caught up.
Yes.
Blonde girl.
Right? Good job. Good job, Kerry. Yes. Yeah. No, in the video, it clearly shows Dante's Inferno. And I thought, well, now we got something here. So she sees this book and she moves it. Now, when she moves things, does she keep them in her possession for, a few hours, a few days before she decides on their location? Or does she just simply know where these things belong or thinks she does?
She never knows right away, which is part of the problem. So she does keep them in her possession for a varying until it becomes where they need to go. So that's always fun too, because where do you stash the money that you stole from, borrowed, moved from your husband until you find the right place to put it? That sort of thing. It makes life complicated.
Yeah. Where is this book set?
It is set in Spokane, Washington, and there's a little bit in Seattle, but that's very small amount. So my book's in Colville where I live, but I venture a little bit of a bigger space, not large by many people's perspective, but that's near to me to put the book.
And did you do some research on, like, I mean, even if she doesn't consider this, I don't know, kleptomania or something like that, I assume that the world in general would look at her and say she's a kleptomaniac. And so did you do some research on this particular psychology? Because there are people who are very compelled to just take things.
I looked into it a little bit. I am a mental health counselor, so I have some little bit of familiarity, although I have never treated anybody with that diagnosis. But I did do a little bit of research on what the best treatment is and that sort of thing, where it could stem from, it's very connected to obsessive compulsive disorder. There's a thought that absolutely you must act on or something bad is going to happen. So the treatment's somewhat similar for that.
Right. And how did you go about developing what would happen to her and how did you develop the complications for this scenario? It must have been fun to come across the premise and her justification for what she does. She doesn't think she's harming anything, I wouldn't think.
No, she tries not to. She knows sometimes it does, but she cannot help herself. This is something that started at the time when she was a small child. And she does know that sometimes when she does this, good things do happen. So she kind of has this understanding, and yet she really would like to stop. It was fun to stumble over it. As a matter of fact, that's where the whole book started. Nickel, her nickname is Nickel, came to me before anything else and explained her predicament. And we started from there. And then really it grew into, I knew she moved the book into somebody's house. And then when I started thinking, all right, what would that house look like? What kind of person would notice immediately and then throw such a fit? And why would they have a problem with it? So it just became, and from there I developed the backstory and the mystery. And I didn't know some of the players that were going to be involved in this in the beginning at all. So that was fun. I got to rewrite the book about 3/4 of the way through as some significant ideas popped up. So
you have to be open. Fun. You have to be open to those changes and see how important they are and how much better the new version will be when that happens.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
So how that really happened, because I love this story so much. I was 3/4 of the way through. I actually had planned for her to have a romantic interest with, well, I'm not even going to say because that's a plot spoiler now. Can't go there. So anyway, I'm about 3/4 of the way through the book, and it's been writing itself almost, really. I called it the gift book for ages because I would just sit down and write, and it was just flowing, and it was fun. Everything was easy. And then I got stuck, as I usually do, about 3/4 of the way through. And I usually have to go back to the beginning and figure out how to change that. So I was in the shower where my muse lives and having, commune with my muse. And all of a sudden, Hawk shows up, who is the PI in this book. And he says, hello, I'm Hawk. I'm here. I'm a private investigator, and I am here to solve all of your problems with the book. And I looked at him. Well, not really, but kind of. And I said, yes, you are. And I get it now. And I was very excited and ran out of the shower in a towel and wrote things down. And then that happened. So that was cool.
Hawk was basically asking for a bigger role.
He wasn't in the book at all until he didn't exist until 3/4 of the way through. Not only a bigger role, first he wanted a role. So I wrote him in, and then I turned the book in to my editors, and they said, we have a problem because you have some point of view scenes from Hawk, but we don't really think it's enough, and we don't think his character motivation is enough to warrant him having point of view scenes. So we would like you to take his point of view scenes away. And I said, oh, no. And I actually even asked my readers, and they're like, no, you got to keep this. So I just gave him more scenes instead. So
when you say you asked your readers, how many people are you talking about?
What I did, I didn't explain the whole thing. I
Okay.
just I got on Facebook, my social media, and I said, and my newsletter actually, and said, so hey, I have a male lead who has some point of view scenes and he has the romantic interest, but they want me to take his point of view scenes away and they really, really wanted me to keep them. So I'm like, yeah, okay, all right,
Yeah.
I'll do that.
So, what do you think was clearly in the leading up to the moment in the shower, part of your subconscious, part of now, I'm being very serious here, Kerry, very, very serious.
Yeah.
You have so much experience now putting together stories and novels that you really were, I think, in tune with what's needed to make a complete book and something. Even though you're 3/4 of the way through, maybe your mind is already starting to think about other projects or another Kerry Schafer book, you are just keeping yourself open as a writer to that artistic universe and saying something in your head or your heart was telling you that there was something missing. So
Oh yeah.
you've developed a skill that helps you do this. Can you talk about that at all? Does this make sense to you, what I'm saying?
It absolutely makes sense. I think of it as listening, really. I feel like somewhere out there in the ether or in my subconscious or whatever you want to call it, the story already knows what it is and wants to be. My job as the writer is, and when it doesn't feel, something's wrong. So what a lot of people call writer's block is where it really feels like dragging or slogging through mud. I know that something isn't right. And there's no point continuing to push forward because it's not working. And I know that the energy's off. So often, I try to plot now. I'm not a plotter of nature, but I did have a consistent plot for this book that should have worked all the way through to the end. But it didn't feel right. Really, honestly, that usually happens. About 3/4 of the way through, we'll just reach this spot where I know that things are not quite right. And then that's my opportunity to look at it, to start listening again, to ask the characters what they're not telling me, what's going on. I'm in that point right now with the book I'm currently writing, where just have to stop and listen. I know when the energy is flowing. When I sit down and write and the energy is right, it feels one way. When I sit down and write and the energy is all wrong, it feels a different way. And so I really listen to that. I pay attention. If I force my way through, I'll just end up having to cut it all later. So
Interesting. Very good.
yeah.
Excellent. So the final product, very happy with it.
Yeah. Oh, actually, I love this book. I always, people ask, what's your favorite book? It's always my newest one.
Yeah.
I love this one and the one too, honestly. So yeah, I'm happy.
Very good. Let's just run down the Kerry Anne King titles if you've got them sort of. I assume you can tick those off.
I kind of can. I have them on the wall just in case I get stuck. So my partner insisted on that. He framed them and hung them all for me. So the first Kerry Anne King was Closer Home, and then there was I Wish You Happy, and then Whisper Me This, and then Everything You Are, A Borrowed Life, and Now Other People's Things.
Very good. And Whisper Me This is one that really just took hold for some reason, right?
Yeah, that's the one that really, really took off, and we would like to do that again.
Yeah.
But there's just there's something about that. I think you can make it happen. You can sit down and think what was in that book that really appealed to people, but I don't want to write the same story all over again. So
right. Yeah,
I end up writing what makes me happy and hope that it will make other people happy.
Right. Very good. Well, you're coming to Colorado Gold coming up in mid-October, not maybe 6 weeks away, something like that at this point. Hard to believe it's getting to that point. We, in normal years, of course, would be at Colorado Gold this past weekend this coming weekend, the one after Labor Day, but they smartly pushed it back. Yeah. You've got 2 workshops you're teaching, I believe.
Yeah.
Can you tell us about the topics? Let's go one by one.
Sure. So the first one I'm doing, I think it's on Friday, and it's called Yes, Victoria, You Are a Writer. And if you're too young to know where that comes from, it was Ann Landers. I don't know. It's like, yes, Victoria, there is a Santa Claus, I think is what that whole thing originated from. And this is built for, it's on the schedule for beginning writers, but I think we can all benefit from this kind of thing. I built it around a class I actually did online a little while ago that turned out to be way more popular than I ever thought it was going to be. And the idea is just to embrace the truth that we are not aspiring, we're not wannabes, we're not baby writers, we're writers. If you write, you're a writer. And sometimes there's that little glitch in your psyche that just won't let you believe that. Your inner critic latches onto it. And that's part of what gets in the way and keeps us from getting to our work, from submitting, from querying, from the writing life that we really, really want. So it's going to be a super fun class that's going to take us all through some activities of looking at really putting together a writing kind of who we are as a writer, why we write, what we love about writing, how it makes the world a better place, and to actually be able to say, hey, I'm Kerry and I'm a writer. So that's the goal of that class. And it'll be fun, interactive, no sitting around listening to me talking, very, very hands-on for that one.
Well, give us a sneak peek of one or two of your activities, because that would be, just give us a teaser.
Well, let me see. So one of them is going to be to sit down and actually brainstorm all the ways that you think maybe the world might be better because of what you write. Some people had a bit of a hard time with that, but it was very interesting what came out when we did that. So that's a journal writing activity. There is also, I will be emotional freedom tapping with you. So I'll be showing you how to do that. This is something that is used by athletes, speakers, as along with people who are trying to deal with anxiety or change beliefs that they don't like to have, where we go through some pressure points on the body and we say certain things while we tap these pressure points, and it really helps to bring down that resistance to being the writer that we always want to be. So that's fun. Those are off the top of my head, and I'm sorry, I would have to actually go back and look and see what I have planned to come up with the rest.
That's all right. Well, this is really an important point, and I think you and I probably have both met and encountered writers, and I'm thinking of one person in particular who just, cannot bring herself, in my case, it's a woman, to finish a book, and I just feel it's been years and years that she just can't bring herself to draw that first draft to a conclusion that she can then share with others. And I can sense the lack of confidence coming through and the inability to tell herself that she is as good as anybody and she's got something to say. Right. And I just feel like, I think I know that feeling. I felt that early on. Am I good enough? But I think it just comes through writing more and more and testing yourself.
Yeah, I agree. Like finishing and then starting a new book. It's like being too attached to that one book. Like, this is the only thing I'm ever going to write. Well, then it has to be perfect because it's the only one, right? But it's hard to finish because then your inner critic knows as soon as you finish that book, then the next step is going to start letting other people see it. I always run into a little bit of trouble the last couple chapters because I know once I finish, it's going to be up for scrutiny. And I have all kinds of ways to deal with that, and I love sharing them. So that's why I'm doing that one class.
Yeah. And my last point on this one, just real quick, I'll get your opinion on this. I really think that the term writer is the right one. And I really don't like the distinction when people say it, maybe you use it, but here's an author. An author to me is just such a pretentious way to say writer. And maybe that means you've been published or not. I guess it means you've been published. I don't know the technical definition. But if you've written 1 or 2 paragraphs of fiction, in my mind, you're a writer. That's all it is.
Yeah, I totally I agree with you. I've kind of come around to sometimes using author because there's also this tendency to be self-deprecating as writers when we go to put our work out there. And so since author is kind of one of those terms that
Yeah.
a lot of the world sees in that way, I started using it for my professional life just because
Yeah.
it makes me admit that, hey, yeah, I do have published stuff out there and I'm professional. So I don't know. We're all
Yeah.
writers for
Yeah.
sure. If you're writing, you're a writer. And my big thing that I get really upset about, I hate the word aspiring. That just gets me, it causes all kinds of trouble. We're not, you can be aspiring to be published if you want, but you're not aspiring to be a writer. You are a writer.
Bingo. Bingo.
Yeah.
Oh, bingo. I hadn't stopped to think about that, but that's a really good point, Kerry. Yep. Great. What's the second workshop about?
The second one is for professional writers, and it is called What to Do When the Thrill is Gone. And it's dealing with burnout. And again, it's some of the same sorts of techniques, but from a different angle. So the more I'm in this business, the more I run into other writers who used to be really excited about writing, but their art came up against the publishing world. We get disillusioned, we get discouraged, we get overwhelmed, we come into this space where we've got nothing and we're trying to write, but we feel empty. And so I do have some great restorative practices that I want to teach for filling that well. It'll be a mix of some practical advice, some journaling, some more of that EFT stuff, just a really refilling, getting back to writing for the love kind of space for people who are finding themselves in that position. Because there's nothing worse, I don't think, than being somebody who has loved writing, who is a writer, who suddenly just has lost the love. And that's like a divorce, but it's worse than a divorce because it's a divorce from yourself and who you really are. So
wow,
I really, really, really like to help people get through that space.
Yeah, if it feels like drudgery or you've been there before, that's bound to come out on the page when you write as well.
Right. If you're even writing,
Yeah.
and that's the other thing. So a lot of people who are in that burnout place, either aren't writing or they're not writing joyfully, or the writing is just so filled with anger and outrage over the way they've been treated, which is often unfairly. But again, I think that a lot of us run into this problem where we're artists. We write because we write, we have things to say, and then publishing is a business, and the two things combining, and that doesn't matter whether you're indie or traditional, there's definitely a great divide there, and it can feel like running into a brick wall. And so learning to navigate that and have a healthy balance between your business life and your writing life is really important, and a lot of people are struggling there, I know.
Yeah, that's a really interesting concept too, because you might be so frustrated by the business side and not seeing a book do as well, or maybe it's taking too long for your agent to sell something, or you're you're just frustrated by all those business aspects that you start to sour on everything about it. And
right.
Yep.
Or you've been like really badly treated by a publisher,
Sure.
which has happened. People have been betrayed and cheated by agents or publishers, or you've not been paid, or you've been dropped, or, there are all of those things that happen. And if you're doing indie, then there's the whole, frustration with trying to figure out how it all works and dealing with rejections and bad reviews and all of that stuff. So it can really get to people. I hear writers say all the time, this is a brutal business. And I love what I do and I'm very happy, but I have felt that. So I totally know the feeling. And so I think practices of resilience and refilling the well, as Julia Cameron teaches, really, really help to protect us from that burnout space where nobody wants to be.
Right. Well, you mentioned that this is true for indie writers or traditionally published writers. And for those who want to go back to the earlier interview we did in July about Dead Before Dinner,
Yeah.
you talked a lot about that process, about deciding to go indie for that particular title, and talked about all the work you put in to make sure it was a very professional product and doing well. So you really have a nice balance now between seeing it all, I guess is what I'm trying to say. You have conversations with your publisher that must be satisfying, and yet in another way you can really control a novel and its final manifestation as it goes out into the world.
Yeah, there is that. And they're two very different practices. To be really honest, I have not done nearly as much with the PR and marketing as I would like to do with Dead Before Dinner. I've been a rather busy girl.
Yeah.
I'm writing. I have a deadline too. So I have Other People's Things is coming out on October 21, and Improbably Yours is due to my editor on October 1st. And I'm not done. So,
And I just want to check, did you say Other People's Things comes out in October or?
September. I may have said it wrong.
Yeah.
September 21
right,
for Other People's Things. Sorry. I keep saying October for that. I don't know why.
In just a few short weeks. So it'll be out well before the conference.
Yeah.
And will you have books there to sell?
Very possibly not. I'm with an Amazon imprint, and there are some issues with some. Yeah, I may not have them there.
Because there's an independent bookstore running the bookstore at RMFW this year. It just is a fact of life. You can't, we'll just we won't go into
We're just going to gloss over that. I don't want to get into it.
That's great. Well, these are two interesting workshops that really just get at that kind of attitude side of it. And it really starts with attitude. And I don't know, I find I always write better if the night before I'm up writing early. I think you're part of the 5 a.m. writing club like me. If you just kind of plant that seed the night before, like, I'm going to have a good day writing tomorrow. I just am.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And you roll out of bed and it's still there, that idea. So go ahead.
No, attitude is really everything. It's kind of funny to me. It's like, I call it mindset, and the other professions really get into mindset. There's speakers get into mindset. Athletes totally get into mindset. As writers, we don't think about it very much, and I don't know why. It's like, you should just write every day, sit down and write every day. Well, great, but what about if we figure out how to do that efficiently and joyfully and, with setting intentions and that sort of thing, like you're talking about? It just makes it so much easier. Why not pave the way a little?
Yeah. Excellent. And that's what you're going to use to get your deadline met.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Oh, I believe I'm going to get there.
Yeah.
I trust it'll happen.
Yeah, that's great. Well, excellent. Kerry, we really appreciate this again. And again, as we always like to do, even if you've been on the podcast somewhat recently, that's fine. We always like to mention one other book or writer, and maybe you didn't prep for it this time around, but so I'm going to spring it on you anyway as a way to wrap up here. Pass along, maybe just reference one other book you've read recently, or some writer you think needs a little bit of attention.
Oh, see, it's so hard to just do one. A book that's on my mind right now that I absolutely adored, and it's on my mind because I was looking for books that had characters like Nicole in Other People's Things, a little bit maybe messed up, but good-hearted, who maybe committed for not such a good reason. And the crime is for a really good reason. Sorry. They crossed the line, but their intentions are good. And one of the books that I read this year that I absolutely adored was Anxious People by Frederick Bachman. Just absolutely brilliant. You can't talk about the book without giving plot points away, really. I just have to say that the word stole my heart. So it's, if you haven't read that one yet, you totally should. And right along with that, another one that really, really got me was the Thursday Murder Club with a bunch of senior citizens who are solving crimes. And I love that. It's very fun.
Do you have an author's name on that one by any chance?
Oh, no, I can't think of it right now. I'm sorry.
All right. I'm going to do the, why don't you say something while we stall here? Because I want to get this on the, podcast, and we have the internet. So
Yeah, while he's looking that up, I'll also mention, see, I have so many I've been reading a lot lately. Willa Reese is another one that is, this is a women's fiction with magical elements, which is the other thing I'm really into this year. Willa Reese has written a book called Wildwood Whispers, which I absolutely also adored. It's got a tough girl, grew up in the city and foster care and all of that. And she goes to, the mountains in the south to do something because her best friend had died and was from there. And she encounters wise women. You could use the word witches, but witches isn't really quite right. There's this tribe of wise women who bring her in and teach her. And there's mystery and drama and romance. And anyway, beautiful, very fun. Loved it very much. Reese, Wildwood Whispers, and Mark found what he was looking for, I think.
Yep, it's Richard Osman, Osman.
Yeah, and I think there's a sequel this month.
Yep, very good. Oh, you got in 3, Kerry. Way to go.
I could keep going for a long time.
That's great. Well, Kerry, we'll catch up with you. We'll see you in Denver in a few short weeks. Safe travels there. And thank you again, and best of luck. We'll talk to you real soon.
Thanks, Mark. Bye, everybody.